everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren, and in this video I am going to be fully restoring a piece of furniture for the first time ever as a beginners. Let's get into the project. I have been hitting the jackpot at my local Goodwill, like right up the street lately, and it's not normal. So this is like an anomaly, but I found this piece at that Goodwill for $25. And I walked back to the furniture section and I knew I had to have it. I grabbed the sticker right away. It is called Americraft, and so I knew that it was like a good brand because it's branded in general. And then this is a pretty old piece of mid-century furniture. I talked with you guys over on Facebook and my Instagram, and if you're not following me over there, I like to do a lot of like real-time interactions of like opinions on projects that I'm doing. But anyway, you guys told me that I should restore this piece. So I decided that I am officially ready to try restoring a piece. Like, I've stained pieces, but they haven't had any damage that I had to fix. And unfortunately, this one does have a few spots of like missing veneer and things like that. And there's a little like cracked drawer over there that I'm gonna have to address, but I'm excited to dive in and learn how to do this. I am going to be referencing my friend Erin at Refurbished-ish a lot in this video probably, and just like for my own knowledge of how to actually restore it, specifically on those damaged areas. I know some things, but we're gonna be learning a lot together, so I'm really excited. And honestly, I'm a little nervous as well, but we're gonna dive right in. The first thing is always the same on any project, and that is to go ahead and remove all of the hardware. I thought the hardware on this piece was super unique, and so I will definitely be setting it aside and keeping it and restoring it to look like the rest of the piece as well, and we'll be reusing it at the end of the project. The hardware coming off was so important before cleaning because it definitely has a whole bunch of like dust and grime underneath that hardware. It's probably never been removed and dust just gets caught up in there. So now we're gonna move on to cleaning. So this is like kind of dirty. Honestly, I put the hardware up here and it made it even more dirty. A lot of watermarks and things like that, which I'm hoping will sand out. I do know that this is a veneer, but hopefully it'll still be able to be sanded out, and we're restoring it. So even if I blow through the veneer, I should be able to fix it with my new fun little tools and supplies. But I'm using Simple Green to clean this piece because we want to make sure that it's just all grease and oil free so that everything just reacts with the wood really nicely when we go for, you know, sanding and then pre-staining and staining and top coating. So we just want to prep everything really well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really excited to start sanding this down because I wanna see what we're working with, and I wanna make sure that like all these water spots are able to be gotten out. If they're not able to be sanded out, I'm gonna have to be doing a little bit more experimenting on how I'm gonna get those out, like oxalic acid and stuff like that. But First things first, we're gonna see if we can get it sanded down. I'm gonna be using my 5-inch orbital sander from Surf Prep with the 80-inch ceramic sandpaper, and that should cut through this pretty quickly. Overall, the water stains did not hinder the sanding job, and they are pretty much sanded out. That was just with an 80 grit, and so I'll go down with a 120 grit and a 220 grit as well, which will help get even more markings out. But that was super easy. The finish on this thing was horrible. It was failing very badly because of how old this piece is. If I had to guess, I would say that it's like from the 60s probably, maybe 50s. I look back here and there's no date on the back here, but it does say that it's oak, so that's good to know. But now I'm gonna move on to the sides of this dresser, and we're just gonna basically be sanding off the finish just like I did up at the top here. I decided to go ahead and take the base off so that I could appropriately sand this down and get it to where like I can get every single crevice. When it was on there, it was much more difficult and I couldn't get everywhere. But now I just had to unscrew a few screws and then pry a couple of nails out, and now I should be good to go on sanding. So I'm just gonna grab my 3x4 and go ahead and sand down the finish of the base, just like I have been doing with the rest of the piece. So now that I'm done with the 80 grit on everything, I need to start working my way up in grit. So I'm gonna move on to a 120 grit. And the goal is a couple of things. One, we wanna make sure that we're getting rid of the sanding swirls that were probably created with the 80 grit. And then two, we want to start closing up the wood grain. When you use a low grit, it's way more rough, and so it opens the wood grain a lot. But you want to start closing it a little bit, not too much so that the stain will still take in, but just to about a 220. So we're gonna go to a 120 and then a 220. Sanding is really important for when you are restoring it, especially to get those sanding swirls out, because those will show up no matter what, and then you'll have to re-sand the stain off and then stain it again. So this is like really important, and it's really hard to tell if you have the sanding swirls or not, but we're gonna do our best to get them all out here. Now that I have all of the surfaces sanded down to an 80 grit, a 120 grit, and a 220 grit, we've got really nice and smoothed out veneer here. And I want to do two things. I want to use my mineral spirits. Well, my mineral spirits is going to do two things for me. One thing is it's going to kind of mimic what it might look like if I put a stain on it or if I just top coated it. And that is going to allow me to really see if I got all of the sanding swirls out. If not, then I'll go back once it's dry with my 220 grit and really try to sand out any sanding swirls that I may see. And then the second thing it's gonna do is it's going to make sure that all of the dust is gone, because when you stain something, you don't want any dust in your stain. So that's going to be all done by the mineral spirits, and I'm just going to go ahead and like wipe it on here, see if I can, make sure that anything is, there are no more sanding swirls. And then if that's the case, I'll be able to continue like moving on around the entire piece, the drawers, the sides, everything. I don't want any sanding swirls because that's like the worst. This also will make sure that like your finish is completely sanded off. Sometimes there may be areas where like you didn't sand enough or something like that, and so the mineral spirits won't soak in that area, and then you'll need to go back and sand it as well. From afar, it's looking like there's no sanding swirls. Maybe there is a few. Yeah, there's a few areas that have a little bit of sanding swirls. On the top here, there's like an area over here, an area right here, a little bit here. Overall, I think I did a really good job of getting those sanding swirls out. There's like 3 really small sections, and it's like almost unnoticeable, but again, I'm really trying to make this super good. Even though it is my first one, I want to try and like do it right. So once the mineral spirits dries on the top, I'll definitely go back over it with a 220 grit. And then yes, I will need to do the mineral spirits again, but that's okay. I want to do it right. But now I'm going to look at the other sides and the drawers and see if we need to sand those down anymore or if it's just the top. So I covered everything with the mineral spirits, and I've got 4 drawers that have just the slightest, smallest areas of the sanding swirls that I want to get out. And so I'll just, once this is dry, you have to wait until the mineral spirits is dry. But once it's dry, I'll go ahead and do just a quick, nice sanding with a 220 grit over the top of these drawers, and then run it back over with mineral spirits again, and then we should be good to go. So it's just these 4 drawers and then the top, because on the sides and then the rest of the drawers, I didn't have any sanding swirls. So that's super encouraging. That means that I did at least maybe like half of it right. And then don't forget, whenever you're using oil-based products, with which mineral spirits is, you need to make sure to lay out your rags and let them dry out for like at least a couple of days so that they don't like spontaneously combust in your trash can or in your garage. I just like to lay them out on the floor, and that's going to be way less chance of it actually like combusting. So I'm going to lay these out and then let this dry and do just a bit more sanding. Repairs. I got the sanding swirls all sanded out really well, but now we need to go ahead and fill in some of the areas that the veneer is missing. This is probably the most damaged corner because it kind of got thrown, if you will, when the guys were helping me load up the piece of furniture. But it is what it is. That's kind of why I'm excited to do this project and fully restore it, because there is a little bit more heavy damage than just like the smaller amounts of peeling veneer. So I got this stuff. It is from Mohawk, and it is Epoxy Putty stick, and I got it in the color walnut. So the reason I got it in the color walnut, as you can imagine, is that we're going to go a little bit darker with the stain on this piece. And so that's, I think, going to be a bit easier to do some color matching instead of doing like a lighter color or something like that. Also, in hindsight, I do think that I probably would in the future fill before I sand things, because now I kind of have to get my sander back out even though I'm pretty much all the way done. But that's okay, you live and learn. Like I said, this is for beginners by a beginner in this process. So another thing is, I do think that you could use a Bondo or something else that's not the color of the stain that you're going for, but I think it's just going to be easier and quicker to color match when I start with a color that's at least a little bit closer in color than like a blue Bondo. So this comes in a tube like this, and I am just going to kind of cut off a little bit. I have several repairs to make, but they're not a lot of them aren't huge. So I'm gonna mix up just a smaller amount to start with, and I can always get more if needed. But I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this amount off. And then I see that there's 2 colors on this. So I'm gonna take the plastic off, and then we are going to mix those together. Once I start to mix those together, I do know that they will start to harden. So when I do that, I kind of want to work a little bit quick so that it doesn't harden too fast. But I don't think that this is like instant, something like Bondo. I think it's a little bit more forgiving time-wise, so I think I should have at least like maybe 15 minutes before it will start to kind of set up well. So we're just gonna kind of mold it kind of like Play-Doh, and we're gonna want it all in one color. So we're gonna get all that white out of there. So once I see it all kind of getting into one consistent color here, I think that that means that we are about ready to go ahead and start applying it. So I'm just gonna take small chunks and kind of shape it like the drawer and rub it into the area. That way it really adheres well. And then I'll kind of like shape it so that we're not using like an abundance. We want to use enough, but we don't need too much. So just kind of, and this stuff should dry pretty rock hard once it's actually dry. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go around to the rest of the areas and get that going. I kind of gotta work fast. I feel this like warming up. I don't know if that's gonna like dry up real fast or what. So let's keep going. Okay, well, I was totally wrong about the epoxy, and it is already hardened, and I've only mixed this up like 2 minutes ago. So work quick, do smaller portions, because I'm just gonna have to trash this. It's like rock hard already, and it's getting warm. So the minute it starts getting warm, I think that's your indicator that it is drying or hardening pretty fast. So I'm gonna do much smaller portions next time, because I only got to fill in like 3 small spots and this is kind of a waste. But you live and learn. Now you guys know to do smaller portions than I did if you've got like multiple areas to fill it. Got all of the epoxy on there, and I don't think it's gonna take very long to harden up at all. Obviously, it started hardening within like 2 minutes, but I just mean like fully in order to sand. So I'm gonna give it maybe 30 minutes to an hour and see if that is enough. So right now is kind of just a waiting game for that section, or for like it to all harden before I can go ahead and sand. So we'll come back and sand once it's all hardened up. Okay, epoxy is dry and very hardened on this drawer, on these drawers. So I'm going in with a 120 grit, and we're gonna see if we can sand it out, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step. I gave it probably like about an hour while I was sanding down the hardware, as you saw. So we're gonna see if it's hard enough. It seems like it. That was probably the easiest like filler that I've ever sanded down. It was super easy, and it didn't chip off or anything, even though it's right here on the edge. So I'm loving this stuff already. Let's go ahead and continue on to the remainder of the drawers. Now that that I've got all that epoxy sanded smooth, we are ready to do some staining. I've got a few tools that I think will be pretty helpful for this project as far as staining goes. And the first one, of course, is the actual stain. So I'm going to be using Verethane's Premium Gel Stain in the color Dark Walnut. So there's that right there. And then I've heard that the gel stain is like a little bit easier for beginners. So that's kind of why I decided to do that, since I am a beginner at this. And then the other couple of things I have is a like applicator. This is technically for like trimming around walls for like paint, but I've seen this work really well for application of gel stains. Something to pour my stain in, a can opener, and then gloves, and the Scott shop towels for wiping back the excess. So for the Verathane gel stain, it's gonna be a bit thicker than like a typical stain, which is super thin. So I figured I'd open it, pour it in here, and then go ahead and do just like section by section. So we'll start with the top, and I think I'll probably just leave it on there for about like 2 to 5 minutes and then wipe off the excess. So it kind of just depends on how dark you want it, but you want to make sure that you're consistent over each and every surface so that, you know, you get a consistent color. So let's go ahead and dump this in my little paint tray here, and then we'll get going. I'm excited. I think I'm also going to grab a respirator. Since this is oil-based, it's gonna probably have quite a bit of fumes, so let me grab that. Hopefully you can still hear me okay with the respirator.
That's a lovely, lovely voice.
But better safe than sorry. Going to dump some of this in here. Here goes nothing. I think I want a little bit like of some excess to make sure that we've got enough and like really good coverage. You know what I just realized I forgot to do is pre-stain. Oh shoot. All right, we're gonna go ahead and wipe back. First little section is done. I like it. I love this color. It really is good. So I'm just gonna continue on going section by section, and hopefully we'll have a fully stained product in here just a few minutes. Well, a rookie mistake, I kind of forgot to go back and make sure that everything was sanded really well, meaning the swirl marks. Everything was sanded really well. I mean, I guess I didn't go back to the 220 grit after I sanded the epoxy is what I'm trying to say. And so when I did the top here, there are tons of swirl marks. It's not just one area where I could kind of maybe be like, it's okay. It's like this corner all the way across here, that corner, and all the way across here. So it's kind of a lot. So I am going to try again, beginner mistake, but that's okay, we all make mistakes. And then I'll put some, well, since I already know, I'm gonna go ahead and do the mineral spirits thing again. I'm gonna do it off camera so you don't see, you know, more sanding and stuff, but I'm gonna go over everything one more time with a 220 grit after I get this stain off. I think instead of letting it dry and then sand it down, I'm gonna try with mineral spirits to just take the stain off, at least most of it, because this veneer, you know, is getting a little bit thinner and I don't want to go through it and have to do more repairs than needed. So we're gonna try the mineral spirits. This should kind of thin out the stain and soak it up a bit. I'll still probably have to sand, but this will at least get me started here with removing it. I'm glad that I saw that after just one area of space. That way I didn't go ahead and, you know, stain the entire piece and then start seeing the swirls. That would have been even more of a hassle. This kind of is a hassle, but like I said, I also forgot to do the pre-stain, so I may also go ahead and do the pre-stain. Even though that took really well, it might take even better if I use the pre-stain. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on sanding the drawers one last time with a 220 grit, and then we will let this dry out and come back, sand this again. So I'll probably just do some time lapses. You can know that I did it, but otherwise I'll be back here with the first coat of stain. Let's try this again. I'm really glad that that actually wasn't too terrible of a hassle. I mean, of course, it's not fun when you have to redo something, but it could have been worse sanding off wise. So we're just gonna keep rolling. I got everything sanded again with a 220 grit. No sanding swirls, hopefully, but we are gonna go for it. So when you're wiping back the stain, you always want to go in the direction of the wood grain, or else you will be able to see the streaks. So don't forget that. That's why you'll see me going from long side to long side, because that's the way that the wood grain is going. Okay, so overall it's better as far as sanding swirls go. I'm not gonna lie and say that there's like none, but they're way less visible. And this is my first beginner piece, and I'll take that into account when I'm selling this. But it's not, I don't wanna be discouraged by this. And I think it's overall really good. And I feel like maybe I can just see them because I'm in it and I'm close, and I don't know, but we'll see. I am gonna go ahead and move on though from the top to the sides now, and then we'll see if it's kind of giving the same effect. It could just be the wood grain that I'm like, my eyes are just really looking for that sanding swirls, but overall this is so much better. Like those big thick sections of sanding swirls are completely gone. So I'm really happy about that. And overall it took really well. You noticed probably again that I didn't use a pre-stain, and that's because I don't have a pre-stain here on hand, and I really did not want to go to the store. But if I was you, I would definitely recommend grabbing a pre-stain. That's my bad. I will definitely do that on future projects. But for this one, let's go ahead and move on to the sides here. Okay, everything is stained. That was a pretty big job, just a lot of moving around with the drawers and stuff. Next time I think I always forget to like put stuff up on the table, that way it doesn't hurt my back so much, but I'll remember to do that next time with my rolly table. I don't know why I don't use that, but everything is nice and stained. I'm really liking the color dark walnut in the gel stain. And this is oil-based, so it does need to dry for quite a while before I even get into like the color matching areas and things like that. So I'm gonna let this dry overnight, and then I'll be back tomorrow with the next steps, which will be like color matching the little blemishes that I filled with the epoxy, and then anywhere that was like sanded through the veneer and things like that. But things are looking up. I'm really excited to see how well I can do the color matching and to get it to like look like the actual wood does to kind of match the rest of the pieces. So we'll see. It has been a good 24 hours, so I am ready to do the top coat on this dresser. And I know I still have to correct some of the flaws that I filled in and stuff like that, but we want to seal the stain in before we tackle that next job. So we're going to do the top coat first. I am going to be using a spray-on top coat. It's Varathane's triple thick polyurethane, and it is in the satin sheen. So this is going to get really nice and even coverage, and then it's going to be also fairly quick. You just want to have kind of a light hand when you're doing any type of spray product, but this should be totally fine. I've been shaking it up like crazy to make sure that it is ready to go. I'm also going to be using my respirator, and then of course I'll kick a fan on once I've got it all sprayed. Also, another cool thing is you can use one of these like little trigger things to help save your finger if it has the comfort grip. That's a wrap on the actual top coat layer here. I'm gonna let this dry for probably, let's see. Let me see how long it says. Yeah, it says dries to the touch in 1 hour. So I'll probably give it an hour or two, and then we will begin to start color matching everything, and hopefully everything goes to plan. So I kind of forgot about the hardware, that I'm actually staining it the same as the remainder of the dresser since it's all the same wood. So I went ahead, I had already sanded them down as you had seen, but now I need to stain them. So we're gonna glove up real quick, get that done. Using the same method pretty much. I'm just gonna be using a foam brush instead of a applicator, pad, because I figured that it would be, the applicator pad might be a bit too large for these because there's quite a few like nooks and crevices on these guys, but shouldn't take too long. I'm gonna do similarly where I kind of put it on and then leave it a minute and wipe it off. So I think I'll like put one on, put two on, and then I'll go back and wipe that one. I don't know, we'll probably figure out a little method here. A little method to the madness. Never mind, it takes too long to coat one of them, so I pretty much need to wipe it off immediately so that it doesn't start to dry and then I'm not able to wipe it back. That's the one thing about gel stain. But if it does kind of start to dry too soon, you can kind of reactivate it by applying a little bit more before then you're able to like wipe it off. These are a little tricky because they're like all-sided basically. There's not really like a spot that we can grab that doesn't have stain on it. There we go, 1 down, 7 to go. Okay, you have no idea how truly nervous I am to do this. I feel like so far so good on the entire process, and I don't want to mess it up now. But there are small areas that I put the epoxy that aren't obviously matching the rest of the dresser. They are a little bit darker. You can see a few right here, and then of course like the huge ding that I had to fill in, but we are going to fix all of that right now. And I'm going to be using some different products, and we're just going to hope that it turns out okay. The first thing that I'm going to be using is the Mohawk Blend All sticks. I got this pack of 12 on Amazon, and also any of the products that you see me using in this video, of course, will be all linked down below. I'll have like a restoration supplies list, and it'll all be a super easy clickable link. You can just go down there, click it, and check it out. But these, it comes with 12 different colors, and basically what I'm gonna do is kind of be back in art class and figure out which ones of these is going to help me make the closest match to the current color, which is walnut. But then we'll also be using a bit of toner, not too much, to kind of just seal everything together. And I'm just winging it. I don't know. I've seen it done, but I've never actually done it. So we're just gonna see what happens. I'm gonna start with this kind of smaller drawer because there are much smaller dings that were filled in that are small. So I'm gonna go ahead and try my hand at this first. I'm gonna go in with some Harvest Brown, and I'm pretty sure this is like just like crayons, and I'm just gonna kind of mask over the areas that I want to kind of blend, and then I'll just kind of take my finger and kind of blend that in a little bit. Obviously these aren't real crayons, but it's kind of like that. Okay, and then got that a little bit lightened up. Now I'm gonna go in with some burnt umber and put a little bit of reddish in there. And also, before it starts getting too thick on there, then I'm gonna also make sure to kind of spray. And what the spray is gonna do is it's gonna seal it in. So I'm gonna be using, I guess there's 2 different things. There's probably more than 2 different things that you can use to do this. And I've been told that the like sanding sealer, something like this, is fine to use, or something like this, which is the Easy Vinyl Sealer. So whatever you want to use is probably fine, but you just want to make sure that you're sealing in each kind of layer so that way it doesn't continue to get blended and like wiped away basically. I mean, that already looks pretty good, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and spray this little portion of it. I think I'm gonna go with the Easy Vinyl Sealer. And then once this is when this is drying a bit, I'll go on to the next portion, and that way I can keep working. I've got 5 different drawers that have a few pieces of damage that I'm going to need to fix. So I'll be able to keep on fixing it as I let this dry, and I'll come back to this one. It's kind of just like a repetitive process. And you don't want to spray a lot, you just want like a tiny, tiny bit. But we're just sealing that up. And then I'll let that dry while I continue on. Okay, so I'm not going to go like step by step, color by color what I'm doing, but I'll just kind of do a little bit of explaining. I'm gonna kind of do what I just started with over there on the other area. This is Harvest Brown. And the reason I'm not gonna really tell you as much is because every single project is going to be different. And so although I can tell you, what I'm using, you just have to sort of see what colors yours needs. So, but I'll kind of go over it just one more time. This is Harvest Brown. And so I'm just adding it on there and then kind of like buffing it out, rubbing it in a little bit. It's probably the best idea to wear gloves with this. Okay, and then I want to just kind of put a little bit of more red in there. So I'm doing burnt umber again. And I feel like as you kind of work through each area, your area of I don't know, where you put your actual blend-all stick will kind of expand since you're kind of blending it all. Okay, I think for this one I'm gonna need to continue on. I'm gonna try, I'm gonna try some mahogany and see what happens here. Okay, and now I'm gonna go in with the same easy vinyl sealer. Let's see that. Just a light coat. We'll seal that in and move on to the next area, let that dry. So this is what we're looking like, at least on this bigger gash here that was here. I think overall it color matched really well. The one thing that I do think it still needs is for me to kind of draw in like the wood graining lines, because right now it does look just super, like non-textured, and it doesn't quite blend in as well. So I am gonna grab the black blend-all stick, and we are going to see if we can't like kind of extend these wood graining marks, and then I think we'll be kind of good to go. I already did that on this section right here, and I think that honestly looks really good. There was some smaller areas on this one, but I think that the graining like turned out really well. So I'm excited to get her done on this little section as well. There's probably also some other products that you could do. You could use paint with this, but I figured just for the most control and to kind of blend things, I would just go ahead and continue using the blend-all sticks, and then I'll seal that all in. The sanding or the easy vinyl spray, same stuff I've been using, and we'll see how that dries up. So I think we're looking good. I think there's one more step I need to do, and that is to tone everything, because it's just a little bit still, discolored maybe a little bit. It's less in person than it looks on camera, in my opinion, but I think the toner will help even everything out. I'm so proud of myself for this color matching and then adding in that wood grain. This one right here is the, it was the most obvious
damaged area. And honestly, for my first big gouge, like this was so intimidating for me, but I think I did a really good job, to be honest.
Okay, super, super nervous about that portion, but it's all finished besides me doing the toner. And I think it honestly was so much easier than I chalked it up to be. I had this being so intimidating in my head. So if you get anything from this video, at least let it be that you can do it and you just gotta take it step by step. Use this tutorial to help you research on creators that have done a lot more projects and have a lot more tips and tricks than me. But hopefully this is at least a great starting point for you. I'm so proud of myself. And I think that that is ultimately the goal, is that you feel a sense of accomplishment after each project. Obviously, this is not perfect. None of it is perfect, but there's a really good start here. So next up, I am going to be grabbing my toner, and I've got this in the color medium brown American walnut, which is obviously going to be super close to my actual walnut dresser that I stained. Now, I've heard that toner is a little bit not forgiving, actually a lot bit unforgiving. So you want to spray it very, very lightly and only get it on the areas that you actually want toner. I'm very nervous. I think like even more nervous about this than I was with the Blend All sticks, because again, like if you get this on a place that you don't want it, or you overshoot or something like that, then it could potentially ruin the whole piece. And I feel like I'm on the home stretch, and all I've got to do is like this and top coat one more time. But we're gonna wing it because we want it to look really good. I'm going to go ahead and put all the drawers back in the dresser and see what we're working with there, to make sure that I'm toning it all to look the same when it's all put together. Okay, here is what it's looking like after the toner. And I don't know if you can fully tell on screen. Like it might be, it kind of looks a little blotchy on my screen that I'm looking at with the camera, but it really isn't blotchy in person. So I'm hoping that it is showing you a good, picture on screen as well. But I went ahead and I did a coat of toner on this, and I did it on the sides. And then I also did it on the top, which I think is looking really good as well. I think everything is coming together really nicely for my first piece. So now I'm gonna let this dry a bit, and then we'll do a top coat and come back and put on the hardware. So something that I probably should have done before I even sanded everything down was to tackle the drawers and making sure that they are all cleaned up. Now they're not horrible, but I do like to kind of make sure that they are looking nice here on the inside. So I'm gonna do that now while kind of everything is drying before I put on that top coat. So I'm gonna take my sander and just get any gunk out, and then I will do some furniture balm for the finishing touch. And you can really use any furniture balm that you have on hand. I'm using just some old stuff that I have on hand. It's a sweet orange scent, and I'll just rub that into the drawer, and it will go ahead and kind of soak into the wood to really liven it up a bit and give it a nice fresh look. And then something else I like to do is with the wood on wood slides, I will flip this over and I will put some furniture balm on wherever the drawer is going to meet the slides when it slides in. And this will just butter it up, make sure that it's gonna slide really, really smooth. right, the time has come for the final reveal. Here is my very first restoration project from start to finish. And honestly, you guys, I think that for my first project, this turned out very, very well. I hope you enjoyed the step-by-step of this process. I, of course, have a lot to learn in terms of supplies that I can use and steps to take in the correct order and things like that. But again, for it being my first one, I think that overall this piece turned out so well. And I'm really glad that I was just able to save a true mid-century modern piece and that it is back to kind of its original state minus the color. It's much darker than it originally was, but I think that this is going to be much more of a modernized, you know, home, able to fit into the modern home much better than the other color that it was previously. Now that I'm kind of looking at it too, it kind of is reminding me a little bit more into like the brutalist era, which was right after the mid-century modern furniture era, and it's kind of like more chunky. So this is kind of like maybe between those two. I don't know. I haven't really done too much research in this, but anyway, I'm really glad that I decided to try my hand at restoring something. So as always, let's talk about the numbers of this piece. Now, it might be a little bit scary, but I probably invested about $150 or more into all of the supplies that I needed to restore this piece. However, it comes with a caveat because basically, I mean, not even basically, every single one of those products, I have a ton left over. So like the blend all sticks, although that is a little bit of an investment, like $75 for 12 little crayons, those are going to last me for many projects. I barely made a dent in them. So think about it like that, where it's kind of like an upfront cost, but the more you do the projects like restoring pieces, the more you're gonna use those products. So really, in reality, I probably used like cents worth of each product. I didn't use nearly the whole can of gel stain, maybe like an eighth of a can. I did use 2 full cans of the top coat, so that was a little bit more. The epoxy putty, I probably used about 1/4 of that. So obviously there's things that are going to go quicker as far as like you needing to replace it, but overall, like we're gonna call the whole project $200, including the buy-in, the sandpaper, and all of the materials used to restore this piece. And I have no idea what I should sell this for on Facebook Marketplace. Typically it's a game time decision, but I think I'll start around $800. I think that that's a really fair amount for a wood piece like this. And honestly, I'm truly gonna be testing my market on this piece because I've never really sold a restored piece versus a painted piece. And I do feel like there could be a little bit of a difference as far as my market goes and like who may be interested in this style and what their budget may or may not be. So we'll just say a potential profit of about $600. And if I had to guess, since this was my first restoration, I would give it about like 12 to 15 hours of work and labor into it, but a lot of that was trial and error and me figuring out that, oh, I should have sanded again and I wouldn't have had to redo that if I would have done that before and prepped. So some redoing, but hey, for a beginner, not too shabby. So I'm very curious on your thoughts of the whole restoration projects. I have obviously put this off for at least 5 years from when I started till now because it just was something that was so intimidating to me, and I really do enjoy the process of painting furniture and what that looks like. But this was super fun, and it was really fun to switch things up for a little bit, and honestly it was not nearly as intimidating as I made it up to be in my head. So if you've been thinking about restoring a piece of furniture and investing in all of the materials that you need, don't let it be too daunting. This was super fun, and just have grace with yourself. If you mess up, chances are you can always fix it. Or hey, there's always paint if you mess it up really bad. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I'll have some more restoration projects coming up in the works, but I'm excited to share next week's video with you as well. So be sure and get subscribed down below so you never miss an upload. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.